Right, welcome everybody. Welcome to this another Hazands webinar series. Today we have John Etwell and Pam Mitchell talking about personal leadership and working differently. So just in terms of logistics, Pam and John will talk for 20-30 minutes. And I've got some slide pack to go through. You'll be on mute and the videos will be off, but you can correspond or ask questions. If you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a button called Q&A. So please put the questions there throughout the presentation. And so we have plenty of time at the end to have questions. Just a bit about Hazands. If you don't know already, Hazands is a non-profit industry good organisation representing 12 associations right across the broad breadth of health and safety. So we've got occupational therapists, OTs, organisational language, hazardous substance people, health and safety journalists, so lots of groups across professions. So you know most of those groups, occupational health nurses, and so we're an umbrella body within them all. So now I'd like to pass across to Pam and John to go for it.
Thank you everybody for joining us today. Hopefully we give you some useful insights that are really practical for you to put into place both at home and in your workplace. The first thing I want to just share with you is how does your purpose fit with your personal and organisational values? And what do we mean by purpose? So what is it that we're trying to achieve both in our business and business as usual, but also in the lockdown? Are we focusing on certain products and services? What is it that we want to be remembered for? And how will the decisions that we make at the moment impact the brand that we have? And from a personal perspective, what's our purpose during this time? You know, we're potentially working from home. Are we trying to do all the things that we normally do, or have we really zoned in on what's important to achieve during this time? I know for myself, my work's kind of shrunk significantly while I'm at home, and so actually I've decided that my purpose is to study towards another exam, and so I've been doing a little bit of that every day. So I've got an overall purpose of doing that at the end of lockdown, and every day I do a little bit towards it. So maybe you're doing the same sort of thing. In terms of values, do you know and understand what your organisational values are, and are they being reflected at this time through the season of COVID-19 and this lockdown period that we're having? And at home, you know, are we really thinking about what our values are? You know, at work we want to be good employees, but we're not in the normal work environment. We're at home, and so we have potentially kids or animals or other things that we value, and so it's going to be normal to have some conflicts. And how are we resolving those? And in terms of our assets, you know, do you treat your people as strategic assets, or do you treat them as resources that could be chewed up and spat out? You know, if we're thinking about our people as strategic assets, are we putting enough resource into making sure that they can be the best that they can possibly be? Or if not, why not? And have we noted that on our risk register? Because our people are the backbone of our businesses. Ding ding.
Yeah, just want to pick up on that the values aspect a bit there. So in terms of strengths, in terms of actually starting to look at our personal leadership and looking after ourselves, yeah, the research on strengths is very interesting. That in fact, you know, if we actually do deliberately identify our strengths and play to those, then we're actually better off. So some of the research, for example, is even just focusing on one strength a day for one week, and in fact, at 3 months, you're happier, you're healthier, and you're more productive. If you focus on your weaknesses, in fact, the exact opposite is true. That after 3 months, in fact, you've had more sick leave, your productivity is lower, and you're less happy. So, you know, in terms of picking up on Pam's point there around your values, strengths, values is a great way of looking at. And we put on the website, there's a link to the VIA, which is a values and actions, a strengths questionnaire, which you can actually use and start to think about that. So as Pam's done with this time, she's focusing a bit more on study. It'll be interesting to see what her strengths are there, but that sort of thing actually does have a major impact on our health and happiness at this time. So I guess the idea is you try and stretch yourself in your strength areas. So yeah, how do we do those more or do them better? And you know, for example, if it was study, so Pam's strengths might be love of learning. So in fact, she's taking some time to actually use that strength in the COVID downtime time. So whatever your strength is, how are we actually thinking about how we do those a bit more or a bit better? So again, it's not saying you do it more and more. So it may be, for example, if bravery is one of your strengths, it's not saying you be more and more brave. that may not lead to good things, but it might be saying, how do I do this bravery thing better? And the other key element around engaging, people virtually or members of their household even, is actually helping others identify and use their strengths. Learning, a lot of good psychology happened either before CAT scans or after ethics committees, because now we can put you in a CAT scan and see what's going on inside your brain. So learning things actually releases endorphins, which are the happy chemicals. Learning some new things actually makes you happier and do better overall. And using our strengths again taps into that. How do we stretch ourselves? Helping others learn, even in this, even when people are working virtually, has been found to have a big impact on people's engagement. So how do you help people in your team actually use their strengths a bit more during this time? Fascinating bit of research showing there that if your manager's not working with you on anything, then 46% of those people are disengaged. If your manager's working on your weaknesses, 23% of those people are disengaged. But if your manager's working on your strengths, only 1% of those people are disengaged. So it has a huge impact on how we feel about life and about work. Tinkle, tinkle. So the other aspect of this personal leadership is around, I guess the routine and planning to use your day. And I guess I'll pick up on this a little bit more on the next slide, but I think Pam just mentioned there briefly around those priorities. So what are you spending your day on? And this goes in the working virtually as well as at work. A good day for most people looks like when they come to the end of the day and they can actually put their finger on some things they've achieved. A rubbish day looks like when you've been busy all day, but in fact you can't quite put your finger on what you've done. So planning a day, what are those important things? What are the must-dos today or this week? And how do I actually structure my day so that I can actually spend some good quality time on the must-dos? Have a routine, I guess, is particularly important in the COVID and working virtually. Our body loves routines. It's very good at habits. So the more we can actually structure our day and have a routine, actually helps us in terms of our well-being as well as our happiness. I want to look at a couple of things that I guess particularly to be cognizant of at this time, and one is sleep. So sleep has a huge impact on our health and well-being, and actually the health and well-being of people around us. Fascinating research recently found not only people who are not getting enough sleep do they feel more lonely, but in fact the people they interact with feel more lonely as well. So sleep has a major impact on our ability to build good relationships with people around us. But also, more importantly, sleep also impacts on our ability to prioritize and to deal with things in a logical manner. If you're not getting enough of the deep sleep in particular, then in fact the connection between the front part of your brain, which is logic and relationships, and the back part of your brain, which is emotions, actually starts to break down. So all of a sudden we're actually driven tactically by whatever appears urgent, and we react emotionally rather than actually acting in a logical way. So key elements of sleep are regular. So that's having a regular bedtime is really important. Again, our body loves routines. So our circadian rhythm, generates a chemical called cortisone. So that's as that generates during the day, that's what makes you feel tired at a particular time because it's expecting you to go to bed at that time. And our deep sleep happens at a certain amount of time after we go to bed. So regular bedtime is really important to get the deep sleep. Enough is 7 to 9 hours is what the research is saying now. So 9 hours in winter, 7 hours in summer. Yeah, and again, the important part of the enough is that there's actually two different parts of your brain that control sleep. One controls the REM sleep, one controls the deep sleep. But if you're not getting enough REM sleep, that part of your brain pinches some of the deep sleep. So basically, if you're not getting enough sleep, it's always your deep sleep which suffers, which again is that ability to think strategically and the regenerative processes in our brain. The last one there is in the dark. The chemical I mentioned before, which builds up during the day and makes you feel tired, that actually is not got rid of just by sleep. We need melatonin to get rid of that, which is generated by having enough light during the day and sleeping in a dark place. So yeah, so important there to actually get outside during the day and also to have a dark space at night, and to stop using your devices sort of 90 minutes before you go to bed, because that reduces the production of melatonin. Other key ones around that routine are taking breaks, rest and recovery. You know, break every 2 hours wasn't a union-driven thing. That was behavioural scientists saying actually that's when your productivity drops off. In fact, more recently, the research, if you're involved in high-intensity activities, is that actually as a break every hour is important for up to 5 minutes. If you don't do that, then basically after lunch, you know, your productivity goes way down. You feel fatigued, but if you take regular breaks through the morning, in fact, you can actually work productively through the afternoon. Stay hydrated is really important, impacts on our IQ and ability to relate to other people, eating well, and getting exercise. So the 10,000 steps a day, getting outside, getting some air, getting some sunshine are already important for our well-being and our productivity. Tinkle, tinkle. Yeah, and the other one there is the boundaries. And again, this applies just as much as when you're at work as well as at home, but I guess it's a bit more difficult sometimes organising people at home. But basically our productivity, you know, we don't cope well with distraction. In fact, our brain, you know, if we're concentrating on something and somebody distracts us, asks us a question, in fact, it takes 7 minutes to actually fully concentrate on their task and 7 minutes to get back to our task. So every interruption, you know, actually reduces our productivity for over a 14-minute period. Yeah, so obviously the desk setup and that sort of thing is really important, but also, you know, create some space for yourself at home or at work, you know, when you go back to work. You know, if you watch your good thinking time of the day, it might be, you know, 9 to 11 in the morning, that's your good thinking time. Actually tell people, actually, I'm going to shut myself away this time. Please don't disturb me unless it's an emergency. And the rest of the day, you may actually make that available for disrupted activities. That might be where you have your meetings or deal with emails or phone calls or whatever else. So yeah, really important to create yourself some space where you can actually do some good thinking. And lastly, there is be kind to yourself. You know, these are difficult times. You know, you may not be always as productive as you think you should be. In fact, I think most people I'm speaking to actually feel as though they're more productive now because, you know, you don't have driving time between meetings and those sorts of things. So, yeah, but be compassionate to yourself. Over to you, Pam.
Thank you, John. So just want to talk a little bit about communication and connection. So it's really important to strike a balance. It's, you know, not give people too much information to cut through the noise. There's so much information out there at the moment, and a lot of it is not helpful actually. So from an organisational point of view, you need to make sure that your messages are regular, relevant and transparent. You know, people really need transparency at the moment. People know, and one of the young people that's living with me at the moment yesterday got a letter from his employer that talked about stage 1. We've gone through stage 1 and now we're looking at stage 2. It's our hope to keep you in employment, but the opportunity of that is fading the longer that we're in this season. So, you know, being really transparent about that, but talking about ways that they can make that more hopeful for them. I think, you know, it's really good to consider how Ardern and Bloomfield have done this every day. You know, that every day at 1 o'clock, it's regular. We know that that's when they're coming on, and they're not caught up with all the questions of trying to take us down the track further. They just focus very much on, you know, what do we need to know today, which is what we really need to try and do with our teams. The communication, of course, needs to be 2 ways. So we need to make sure that people can be talking to us about what's going on for them as well. It's important that we have a single place where people can go for information. So if you've got an intranet, you can be putting stuff on there. for them, and you can direct them straight to the COVID-19 website, so that you're not creating additional information and the potential for misinformation, but you can just make sure that people are getting the right messages. It's really important at the moment to normalise the range of emotions that people might be experiencing. So you could experience, and I'm sure you've all had days, I've had days when I felt really sad and teary, and I've had days when I couldn't give a hoot. And I've just been out walking and the kids have been on horses and it's been great. And anything in between, you know, the kids have been happy, being sad, they miss their friends, they're grieving the loss of how it was before this all happened. There's a huge range of emotions, and you know, we know that anxiety and depression are likely to spike. So it's about making sure that we normalise those, and it's about also sharing how it is for us if we're in a leadership position, because we can't expect people to be open with us about what's going on for them if we're not actually being honest about what's going on for us as well. It makes it very difficult. So ensure expectations of our people and ourselves are realistic. You know, John's just been talking about some of the difficulties about having boundaries and routines at home. So, you know, if we've got young children and we're on our own, then it's going to be very hard to work a normal 8-hour day. So, you know, what can we do at best and what time can we do that? And then just try and negotiate around some of that. Think about what sort of support your organisation is going to need to provide people in the long term. So particularly if people have had a death in the family, you know, that's going to have a really long tail. If people lose their jobs over this, then how are you going to be dealing with those people as well? And the people that are remaining or coming back to work but have heightened levels of anxiety and depression or whatever else is going on for them, how are you going to deal with that? So the communication is very, very important. Regular, relevant, transparent, but also with a glimmer of hope. So connection's important as well, and we've heard the byline, physical distance, not social distance. And so we're hearing that message. It's been a very strong message. But in terms of our teams, it's really important to be asking, how are you today? And I've put this form up here, and I don't expect that you can read it, but it's going to be available on the HASAMS website. And basically it gives you the option of scoring yourself out of 10 every day. So it's been developed by a guy called John Stevenson in the UK, who's currently sick with COVID actually. It's just recovering. But it asks about your purpose and motivation, what have I eaten, how have I slept, what exercise have I done, and then you give yourself a score out of 10. But it's also, I kind of use it with my mother when I'm checking with her. She's 90, and so, you know, her world's pretty small these days. So I actually use it, I check in with her and I ask all those questions. So it's quite fun. So it's a really practical tool, and it's useful, like I say, for ourselves, but you can also use it with your team members. How are you today? How did you sleep? You know, how's your routine? How purposeful are you feeling? How engaged are you feeling? What does it take to have a good day? You know, John said before that sometimes if we get to the end of the day and we've achieved some good stuff, we feel good, and if we haven't, we tend to feel rubbish. But what are the other things that it takes to have a good day? Is it that we need to be connecting with people? Is it about the resources that we need? Is it that we need to not fear for our physical and mental well-being? So what are the things to have a good day? And we need to be checking in with that constantly at the moment, because that's going to be shifting. And once we've asked that question, then what are the things that you've got in place to support you having a good day, and what are the current barriers, and then how can we work with those to improve things? So it's about asking, then of course it's about listening, and then it's trying to put in place some strategies to make things better, and then repeat. Oh, it's all right. Just checking, bringing it back together. So eventually we might get back to the office, we might get back to the construction site. So we need to think about, during this period of time, if we've been really clear about what our purpose and our values and how that manifests in the work that we do during this period of time away from the office, our normal work environment, when we go back, we need to be thinking, what did we do that we set out to do? What did we pick up? What did we leave behind? And how did our actions strengthen our organisational, our personal values? And then how do we embed those back into the workplace? Is it time to revisit our purpose and our values in the workplace and make sure that they're embedded and that they guide all of our behaviours and the way we work? What else did we learn? And what does all of this mean for the future? It's really important to think about support. So knowing what supports are available and how to connect to them. So we've all been a bit anxious or a bit down or a bit stressed before. So what's worked for us before? Is it that we use the 5 ways to wellbeing, or is it, which which is give, learn something new, keep active. That's 3 of them. Can't remember the other 2 off the top of my head. You can look them up. But is it that we do those, or is it that we're trying something else? What's worked for you before? What is available through work? What supports have we got? What have you been, are you able to talk to your manager? Do you have a buddy system? Do you have EAP? Do you have flexible work arrangements so that if you're not being able to manage the 40 hours a week that you can drop down? You know, are there facilities or availability to actually work more flexibly? And then, of course, there's mental health resources on the COVID-19 website currently, which you can access. If you Google mental health COVID resources, it comes up. I tried it. And then there's a whole pile of apps in there that you can use as well. So support's really important, knowing that you need it and then knowing how to access it or being able to ask for help. That's all from me. Q&A. Over to you, Philip.
All right, I was talking to myself. Do you want to share your screen? Thank you. Great. So thanks for that, John and Pam. Over the Q&A, as I said, put some questions into your Q&A box down the bottom, in the middle of the screen, and we'll go from there. Our first question is for John. It's not really a question, it's a request. John, you mentioned that there's a study on manager engagement and disengagement. Is there a link to that study?
Yeah, more than happy to send that through.
Okay, if you send it through to me, and I'll put it up on our site.
Yep.
Thanks for that. Question from, I absolutely agree with the phrase physical distancing. I've been inquiring communities that I'm in touch with to use this phrase rather than social distancing. Whoops.
Sorry, you were frozen. I didn't get that question if it was directed at me.
Sorry, I froze. It's my fault. Sorry, I had some internet problems. Thanks for that. So, talking about distance between physical distancing, or use of phrases between physical distancing and social distancing. How can we replace that in our health and safety community as well?
How can we replace it? What do you mean by replace it? Just in terms of the term, so that we mean.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. Yeah.
I think the Mental Health Foundation's done a nice one. I'm just trying to think what it is. It's more around connection. So we need to stay connected. So physical distance, yes, but stay connected. I can't remember what it is, but it'll be on their site. But it was a nice one. Sorry, that's not much help. I can't remember off the top of my head. The message has got to be clear though. So no matter what you do, the message has got to be simple and clear so that that doesn't muddy the water.
I think they've done a good job of repositioning mental health to mental well-being, haven't they? Someone says it's a good presentation. Yes, the presentation will send it out, link to everybody. So I'll be on the headhand site on the COVID-19 link. So there's other webinars and information there as well. So we'll send it out after this and go from there. I need to turn on John's video. Just use the email. John, you should go start your video now. Beautiful. Okay. Other questions? There's one more question here. Thank you. Thank you. That was very useful. That's great.
I've got another article on that in terms of the physical distancing or rather social distancing. So I'll send you that link as well.
Good luck.
Yep.
So we'll get everything out to everybody, the people who have attended and haven't attended. So it'll be out the next day. Any other comments or waiting for questions to come in? Pam, John?
Just one of the other things I would say is just be careful what you listen to, be careful who you listen to, be careful who you hang out with, even if you're hanging out virtually. You know, I have regular coffees with a couple of my girlfriends, and one of them is very hung up on having to talk about COVID all the time, and the other 2 of us are trying to put it in a box. because it doesn't actually build you up. It gets a bit over the top. So just be careful about what you're listening. Be careful about what music you're listening to as well. Make sure that it's not making you too much more depressed. So just be conscious about how you're filling your head.
Yep, good point. John, any comments?
No, the key one I think is looking after yourself, and unfortunately it's a nice autumn, isn't it? So there's plenty of opportunity to get outside. We're 20% happier if we get a bit of sun in our skin. So yeah, it is about getting outside, doing a bit of walking and things like that. So I think that's one of those keys. And again, that self-compassion. Things are different. You don't expect the same from yourself. And there's lots of fascinating research on the self-compassion and actually the impact on our health and well-being. In fact, if we beat ourselves up, we're less likely to change our behaviour. So, if we actually sit at the end of the day and think, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I did this wrong, actually, people are less likely to change it. If you're actually compassionate and say, actually, if I told Pam this, what would she say? She wouldn't beat me up. She'd say, oh, never mind, what are you going to do differently tomorrow? Or, never mind, you've got kids at home, can you really do that? And the research is that we can actually be that little coach for ourselves. Actually, we're more likely to change our behaviour in future, and we're happier with that. So be compassionate towards yourself.
One of the challenges I've noticed, not myself personally, talking to others, is childcare, and people trying to be one or two of them in a parenting relationship with solo parenting. They're trying to do their work if they can at home, as well as trying to teach kids. Any thoughts around that?
Yes, I have thoughts around that. It depends on the age of the kids. If they're little kids, it really doesn't matter if they're not educated for 4 weeks, is my view. They'll catch up. I know kids that have taken 3 months off school and hasn't made an ounce of difference. So I think just be really kind to yourself, keep the kids entertained. Don't stress too much about their schoolwork. If they're teenagers, I've got 4 in the house at the moment and they're doing NCEA, then they need to be focused on that themselves. But, again, I'm not going to hound them to do it. They're old enough to make decisions, and if they decide not to do the work, then they're going to bear the consequences. If you can watch Nigel Latter's recent show, then you'll probably enjoy that, where he really does say, just leave the kids. Just don't make it a rod for your own back. I think that's the most important thing to do. They'll catch up.
Right. I know my team, I've got a small team, but we catch up at 8:30 every day. It's quite useful just to chat about things because you miss that sort of social interaction. It's quite useful to set the team up. Like you said, John, get the routine going. Everyone has to be there at the same time. Just, you talk about work, of course, but more about what they've done on the weekend, or, someone found a cat after 8 months, which is quite a good conversation. Anyway. Any questions? On chat, there's a good survey currently open through IES UK on impacted wellbeing from home. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Please fire them in, or we will wrap up pretty soon. Thank you for that. Any concluding comments, Pam, John?
Just be kind to yourself. Think about what the purpose is, your values and your opportunities during this time, and don't make it too hard. Indeed.
And there's some, I think on the website there'll be some resources, the strengths questionnaire you can do, which is free. And there's also a strengths development guide, a little exercise there if you'd like to work on one of your strengths each day for a week. I would really encourage you to do that. So it's a great exercise. And also a looking after yourself guide there is in terms of, sleep and eating well and all those things. There's lots of videos attached to that. Great opportunity. Yeah, we've got at least another 3 weeks probably working from home for most of us. So great opportunity to cement in some good habits to go forward with.
Great, thanks for that, guys. Thank you, Pam and John. We'll get out the information and the presentation and recordings out to you the next day. Be kind as people see them. Look after yourself, look after your teams. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.